Hi, folks. I'm Colin Shannon, and today we're going to be examining crisis communication failures in Major League Baseball. So, for a little background, MLB has experienced several well-publicized crises in the last 20 to 25 years. The performance-enhancing drug scandal of the late 90s to early 2000s, the Houston Astros sign-stealing crisis of 2017, and most recently, the communication issues surrounding the pandemic-shortened 2020 season. During each crisis, MLB's communication reflected a lack of preparation not just for the crises themselves, but in terms of strategic responses. Understandably, these responses were criticized by internal and external stakeholders, including players, media, and fans. Why study communication in MLB? Well, some organizations are so well known that any crisis and strategic communication failure is thoroughly documented and available for consumption. Also, media coverage of an organization can have a profound effect on public perception of an organization. And this is especially true in pro sports, where media coverage is round the clock and success or failure is widely reported for even the most casual stakeholder to consume. If an organization's crisis response is inadequate, the stakeholders' perception of that organization is likely to deteriorate. So examining strategic communication failures allows organizations to learn from these crises and prepare crisis communication plans to prevent similar failures. So a couple of terms that are relevant to this study. First off, strategic communication, which according to Hallahan is a deliberate, purposeful use of communication tools and methods to achieve organizational goals. Also, situational crisis communication theory, SCCT, is a theory developed by W. Timothy Coombs for maximizing reputational protection post-crisis and creating post-crisis communication based on stakeholders. MLB's crisis communication strategy did use several aspects of SCCT, including the strategies of deny, diminish, and bolster. Deny eliminates negative effects if people accept that there isn't a crisis. For example, during the PED crisis, MLB denied that steroids were an issue and didn't test for them. The diminish strategy explains that a crisis is not as bad as people think. In this case, MLB said that the sign stealing did not affect the outcome of the 2017 regular season or postseason. The bolster strategy seeks to build a positive connection between an organization and its stakeholders. In this way, during the COVID-19 pandemic, MLB praised their own safety protocols to the media stakeholders and assured them that they were working. Despite using these strategies, MLB's crisis communication was still deemed inadequate during each crisis. They were seen as reactive rather than proactive, inconsistent in their messaging, and not transparent. They did not take action until there was negative media coverage, and nobody really knew what was going on. One specific example is how MLB told the media that COVID-19 protocols were working, but they were constantly threatening players with shutting the season down because they kept testing positive for COVID-19 and forcing games to be postponed. None of this made MLB look good, and its reputation among its internal and external stakeholders, especially fans and media, took a significant hit. So what do we learn from these failures? Well, first of all, as an organization, learn how to respond strategically to crises. Look to prevent or minimize damage done by the crisis. Look to maintain the organization's operations and plan on how to repair reputational damage. We've also learned that crisis communication failures affect trustworthiness. An organization's sustainability and success depend on how key stakeholders view it. And if those stakeholders have a negative view of the organization, support dwindles and the organization doesn't succeed. Finally, organizations need to consistently prepare for crisis. All organizations experience crisis at some point or another, and they have to be ready. They have to use crisis communication plans, and because of that, they have to prepare for every foreseeable crisis. So, what are the effects on organizational communication? Organizations can use MLB's communication failures to positively change their communication practices. They can create better crisis communication plans, which will enhance organizational resilience and stakeholder trust. Organizations must also prepare, as we said earlier, for a wide range of crises and consider their responses. Organizations that readily recognize failures and promptly attend to them are less likely to experience crises. Also, those organizations who do prepare are not only more able to prevent crises from occurring, but they'll be able to prevent a large reputation damaging effect on the organization. Finally, organizations must transparently and consistently share messages with stakeholders. Trust is key between stakeholders and organizations, and having an open exchange between decision makers and stakeholders is critical. So in conclusion, we've learned that strategic communication failures negatively affect stakeholder relations, and any actions taken during failures and recovery attempts can apply to any organization's future strategic communication plans. Learning from these failures and improving strategies and practices is essential for maintaining organizational credibility and stakeholder engagement. Thanks for going through MLB's crisis communication failures with me, and have a great day.